Alright, y'all, one more poem for you guys. This is Grape Sherbet by Rita Dove. This is one of my favorite free verse poems, so especially if you're looking at a poem that does not follow a specific structure, that doesn't play around as much with meter and rhyme, although it does use meter and rhyme a little bit, I would take a look at this one for some inspiration for your poems as well. I did provide the actual text of the poem right here, so I'll open it in a new tab. I will warn you not to use the voice recording of this one right here. They do a terrible job of reciting poetry, so I'll recite this one for you. Once again, this is one of my favorite poems, Grape Sherbet by Rita Dove. Try to see if you can identify a theme or two for this poem, and also pay attention to any literary devices you see. Just as I do in all the other analysis videos, I'm going to try to identify those themes and devices and use those to piece together thesis statements if I were to write an essay about this poem. This is Grape Sherbet by Rita Dove. The day, memorial. After the grill, Dad appears with his masterpiece, swirled snow, gelled light. We cheer. The recipe's a secret and he fights a smile, his cap turned up so the bib resembles a duck. That morning we galloped through the grassed-over mounds and named each stone for a lost milk tooth. Each dollop of sherbet later is a miracle, like salt on a melon that makes it sweeter. Everyone agrees. It's wonderful. It's just how we imagine lavender would taste. The diabetic grandmother stares from the porch, a torch of pure refusal. We thought no one was lying there under our feet. We thought it was a joke. I've been trying to remember the taste, but it doesn't exist. Now I see why you bothered, Father. So that is, once again, Grape Sherbet by Rita Dove. Take a moment, feel free to reread this text as much as you need as you try to identify themes and literary devices. I'll show you how I would analyze this type of poem in just a moment here. So I'm hoping you're a little more comfortable with how to analyze Grape Sherbet. Just got to zoom in a little bit here. Clearly this poem is about memory, as we look at its themes right there. Especially as we look at those last couple lines. Probably the biggest reason why I love this poem is how powerful, how punchy the last stanza is. I've been trying to remember the taste, but it doesn't exist. And then there's this beautiful end rhyme at the very end. Now I see why you bothered, Father. It's so powerful and so, it's such a big tonal shift from the rest of the poem that it just kind of takes your breath away at the very end right there. But notice it has to do with memory. There's this then and now going on in this poem. There's past and present. And in the present, the speaker is looking back and saying, now I get it, Dad, even though Dad's not there anymore. We'll talk about memory as we work through this. I would suggest that what this poem is saying about memory is that our fond memories, those happy memories, those childhood memories, are some of our greatest treasures, some of the things that we should hold on to the tightest and hold on to the most. As it is with poetry, there are a number of devices that Rita Dove uses to develop this message. Let's just start with the sensory details in this poem, especially tastes. The title of this poem is Grape Sherbet, so I hope you can maybe internalize what grape sherbet tastes like. Sights especially, among other sensory details. So just as we look through the top of the poem, let's see, swirled snow, gelled light. We get some images right there. You can picture like a snow cone or a cup of sherbet, whatever you picture there. We cheer. There's a little bit of sound going on in there. His cap turned up so the bib resembles a duck. As we talk about specific memories, you can imagine maybe a dad just kind of goofing around and he's wearing his rally cap. That morning we galloped through the grassed-over mounds and named each stone, right? So you can maybe picture where these kids are playing right here. We'll talk a little bit more about what these grassed-over mounds might be in a moment here. It's a miracle, like salt on a melon that makes it sweeter. We'll talk about that simile in a moment too, but even that is a taste. If you've never taken salt and put it on some watermelon or a cantaloupe before, it actually does make it taste sweeter. I do that whenever I eat watermelon or cantaloupe. It's just how we imagine lavender would taste, another taste right there. The diabetic mother stares from the porch, another image. And then those things kind of drop out in the last stanza. We'll talk about shifts in the last stanza in a little bit here as well. But notice, we've got this poem that's very much about memories, we do get a lot of sensory details to make those memories pop. What else do we have? Motifs. Now, motifs, I realize that maybe you haven't been taught much about motifs in literature because they are hard to teach. Give me a moment. I'll pull up a definition for you here. and then we'll take a look at how the motif of memory works in this poem. Alright, sorry about the jump. I wanted to pull up motif here in your overview document for literary devices. I gotta zoom out a little bit here. There it is, motif. A recurring object, concept, or structure in a work of literature. A motif may also be two contrasting elements in a work such as good and evil. Motif is important because it allows one to see main points and themes that the author is trying to express in order that one might be able to interpret the work more accurately. If you ever notice that there's a repeated idea or concept, or maybe even a repeated object inside of a story or poem, I might suggest that it's a little more important than just your everyday object inside that poem. If it's a motif, it means that the author keeps doubling back to it to show that it's important within its theme. Motifs are not themes, and themes are not motifs. So a motif might be something like memory. That's a concept, it's a subject. Memory is going to pop up in several different ways in Grape Sherbet, but the theme isn't memory itself. The theme is that we should hold on to and treasure our memories. The basic thing that I do for identifying motifs is if I notice that something's repeated and it's not a different literary element, it's not a symbol, it's not an analogy, it's not a character, it's not a part of the setting, those kinds of things. At that point, I would identify it as a motif. But I would suggest that the major motif inside of Grape Sherbet is past memories in general. Check it. The very first line, the day, memorial. So this poem takes place in Memorial Day, right? But it's not a coincidence that Rita Dove chooses to set this during Memorial Day, right? It's not a coincidence that memorial is the third word in this poem. She's basically telling us that this poem is about memory. And we're going to see several different ways that memory is represented in this poem, too. In fact, I'm curious about this. I'm wondering if memories are referred to at least once per stanza for the sake of consistency. We'll see. The recipe is a secret, and he fights a smile. Okay, so actually two references to memory in stanza number 1. This idea of a secret recipe, it might be a reference to memory, especially if that's a family recipe that's been passed down from generation to generation. I just noticed this little phrase for the first time today in reading this poem, and it's one that I've read at least once per year for probably a decade now, since I saw it for the first time in college. He fights a smile. I've never wondered before why the father in this poem would fight a smile here. I think that ties into the fact that it's Memorial Day. He might be remembering his ancestors. He might be remembering his past relatives on this day as well. So even though this is a really happy moment, this idea of him fighting a smile might be him actually treasuring some past, maybe some painful past memories as well, too. That morning we galloped through grassed-over mounds and named each stone for a lost milk tooth. Another past memory right there. Milk teeth are your baby teeth, so we named each stone for a lost baby tooth. Those are past memories from these children as well. We talk about these grassed-over mounds, right? Grassed-over mounds and named each stone. This could be inferring that they are playing in a cemetery. It says that morning we galloped, right? So, and then each gallop of sherbet later. So it's not like they are like having a cookout inside of a cemetery. But it sounds like they may have played in a cemetery earlier that morning. Again, bringing up the idea of memory, that beneath their feet are past people that they're not even thinking about in that moment. The diabetic grandmother stares from the porch, a torch of pure refusal. The sneaky mention of memory here is actually in the fact that the grandmother is diabetic. If we think about this, the grandmother is refusing the grape sherbet right here because she has diabetes. Here's the question, why does she have diabetes? It's probably because her entire life she's grown up eating her family's secret recipe grape sherbet as well. So even that brings up the idea, once again, of memory, that the sherbet has been passed down from generation to generation. Maybe it's her recipe. Maybe it's someone else's recipe before her. We thought no one was lying there under our feet. Another inference that we can probably draw that they were playing in a cemetery. We thought no one was lying there under our feet. Memory. I've been trying to remember the taste. So now we've got the speaker speaking in the present here saying, hey, I've been trying to remember that taste, but I can't. Now I see why you bothered, Father. Now she sees why her father tried so hard in those days to help them cherish those memories. Notice how that motif of memory really plays all throughout this poem. Along with that, there is one more one more little bit of figurative language that we should talk about here. That beautiful simile in line 15, like salt on a melon that makes it sweeter. As we talked about that motif of memory, we notice that some of these memories are positives and some are negatives, right? Her father fighting a smile, maybe a painful memory. Each lost milk tooth, each baby tooth, maybe a happy memory. The diabetic grandmother, happy memories of eating grape sherbet. I've been trying to remember the taste, but it doesn't exist, so there's some negativity towards the end there, right? Notice this. Each dollop of sherbet is a miracle, like salt on a melon that makes it sweeter. Melons are sweet. When you add salt, maybe something that's not so sweet, it miraculously makes it even sweeter. Think of that in terms of memory, right? That we've got our lives, maybe our lives are good, we got a sweet melony life, and we have painful memories, but it's like taking salt, it's like taking those painful memories and somehow thinking about them actually makes life even sweeter. Notice how that simile can be framed in such a way that it really brings out that theme of holding on to past memories. Even the bad memories, even the tough ones, make our lives sweeter. Even though this is free verse, there is... Oh, I should note that right there, too. I forgot to jot down some things. Be patient with me for a moment here. I'll speed through this. Alright, thanks for your patience there. I just wanted to make sure I doubled back to get some thoroughness in my thoughts right there. So again, motif of past memories, and even that simile of salt on a melon that makes it sweeter could be swayed into discussing how even painful memories can miraculously make our lives sweeter. Let's look at end rhyme and meter in this poem. Now this poem is free verse, so there's no system of rhyme or rhythm in this poem. But I hope you notice that there is a little bit of end rhyme in this poem. Gelled light. He fights a smile. His cap turned up so the bib resembles a duck. That's not perfect rhyme. It's slant rhyme. Galloped and dollop. What else do we got? Porch and torch. Lying and trying. Bothered and father, as we saw earlier to end the poem right there. Notice that Rita Dove does use end rhyme to highlight especially important memories or especially important lines, especially that punchy ending that's so important for the tone of this poem. The other thing that she plays with within this poem structure is meter. Now meter is the system of rhythm within a poem. I hope what you notice, and as you were listening to me reading this earlier, is that this poem's pretty flowy until you get to the end. What I would perhaps note here is that stanzas 1, 2, and 3 all have pretty consistent flowy meter, but listen to stanza 4 right here, and listen to how some of those things drop out. We thought no one was lying there under our feet. We thought it was a joke. I've been trying to remember the taste, but it doesn't exist. Now I see why you bothered, Father. You've got these much shorter sentences, much shorter lines, and they're not as flowy, they're not as elegant as the rest of the poem. Again, that's intentional. Rita Dove makes that shift from past to present in the end of this poem. In the past, everything is flowy. Everything is great. It's childhood memory. It's flowy and elegant. And in the present, in her adult life, things are a little bit tougher. Things are not all sunshine and rainbows. And at the very end, there's that reflective note that now she understands why her father did what he did in the past. So end rhyme, especially important lines. It's especially those last ones. Now I see why you bother. So the way to do lines in poetry is now I see. Is it now I see or now I see why? Now I see why. We use a slash to show that we move to a new line. You bothered. Comma. Line. Bothered. And I gotta get those line numbers. 728 through 30. Got it. And then for meter, very consistent until a major shift in the last stanza. That shift is from past to present. Tone shifts from gleeful to solemn and reflective. There you go. And yet reflective at the very end right there. So along with that meter is accompanied with a shift in tone and a shift in setting as well, from past to present. Again, all that has to do with memory in this one. Let's see if we can get some thesis statements written on this one. I can nerd out about poetry all day. We've got to talk about how fond memories are some of our greatest treasures. Let's do a structure one, and we'll do a we'll do a figurative language one, right? I could say something like the figurative. Oh, we'll use the author's name. Rita Dove's use of figurative language in Grape Sherbet. Builds its theme. I'll try a semicolon here. We'll see if I can do this without making it a run-on sentence. Rita Dove's use of figurative language in Grape Sherbet builds its theme. Let's see, just figurative language here. Imagery. Rita Dove's use of figurative language in Grape Sherbet builds its theme. Her imagery and powerful simile illustrate why people should treasure childhood memories. Rita Dove's use of figurative language in Grape Sherbet builds its theme. Her imagery and powerful simile illustrate why people should treasure childhood memories. You may have noticed I left the motif out in my thesis. If I could have found a way to squeeze it in, I would have, but I would probably still refer to it anyway in the body of that essay if I were choosing to do it. For thesis 2, let's talk about structure. Actually, I'll use a similar one. Check this. So I'm going to use this thesis as a model. Rita Dove structures Grape Sherbet to emphasize its theme. Her use of end rhyme rhymes and metric shift illustrate why people should treasure childhood memories. The same idea right there, same theme, and there I just used that same structure. All I did was I changed the focus of my literary analysis. So instead of looking at those individual lines of imagery and line 15 for its simile, I'm going to look at examples of the end rhyme in the poem. I'm going to explore that shift in meter from the first 4 stanzas of the poem to the last one to illustrate why people should treasure those childhood memories.